This is the basic video which gives us a run through of the differences between an analog and a digital desk, and also gives us a bit of a tour around the QU range and the other Allen and Heath Q series. The difference between an analog and a digital system, whereas an analog system we may have been used to multiple knobs repeating for every input channel. In this case, with a digital system, we don't have these. Instead, these knobs at the top here can be used for any input channel as long as we've selected them. So for instance, on this channel here, channel 1, we have my microphone that as I speak, we can turn down and turn back up again. And this, as long we then can press the green select button, the light lights up. Check in the top left hand corner that we're making the adjustment to the right channel, i.e. channel 1. Sometimes below the channel 1 label we might see an additional label such as lectern, pulpit or radio mic or handheld. We then know that we can make the changes to the channel that we've selected. So the first knob on the left hand side here is the gain control. This gives us plenty of control of how much signal goes into the rest of the desk. So we want to set this up so that as somebody is speaking, normally we see some little green lights on this fader here, but also as I'm talking you can see some bouncing around. So we set that up. If we set it down here, it's way too low and we can hardly see any lights bouncing away at all. But if I set it a little bit higher, we start to see some LEDs bouncing away, and that gives us plenty that if we turn it up, we get enough control, and we've got plenty if we turn this microphone up and down on the slider. Next is the EQ. The EQ gives you the ability to change how that microphone sounds. For most of the speech microphones on our installed systems, these have been pre-set up, and any additional changes will only be slight. If you're setting up a vocal microphone, we'll look more deeply into setting up a microphone in a later video, but effectively this gives you a low, middle and high frequency controls, so you can adjust how much bass, middle and treble are produced from that microphone. Your gate, you may consider using a gate, but most of the time on our installed systems, if a gate is needed, we've already set that up on that microphone. A compressor can be set up both for vocal microphones but also for speech microphones. So for instance, the compressor in this case can be turned down on the, if we look on the screen here, we can see the little bar working away, and as I rotate that down, we can see that as I begin to talk, the red bar on the right hand side moves down. This gives us a compression, so if I'm speaking into it at a distance, there's no compression. But if I come into it quite quickly, although the overall sound may change and the emphasis is still there, it doesn't give us too much and increase in volume, and so this is particularly useful on things such as a handheld microphone where the distance that it's used is varied from person to person. If we move on to our output strip here, this most of the time wants to have the left-right symbol highlighted there. This means that any changes that we are making on the inputs is what is going to our main body of the building, and so the levels that are shown here are the levels that go out to the main body of the building. We also have mix outputs, which can be used for a foldback for a music group, or we may have down at the bottom here some channels that are for your induction loop, or for your chancel area. These will have all been set up on installation, and most of it will be password protected. However, you may have access to your music group outputs, and we'll come back to using mixed groups later on in another video. Finally, the last few things on the side, on the right hand side here, we have 4 soft keys. Most of the time we have set these to be 4 presets, which will be labelled on the side. You might have one that's labelled default or normal. This is for a standard service on a Sunday morning. Pressing this will get you back to a default level that will work. You might have individual levels such as high, medium, low. This gives you different levels depending on the style of service that you have. For example, if you have an all-age service that needs more volume, then we want to select that. But then when when we're going back to our normal Sunday service the next week, we need to select the default button, because otherwise people might complain that the sound system is a little bit too loud. If it's left on the too high a setting, you may experience feedback. So we advise that if you've been the person to turn it up because of 1 week's service, then you also turn it back to the default setting.